So you think, would you agree with Jordan Peterson on enforced monogamy?
What is his opinion on it?
It was misconstrued for sure by the woke corporate press. They painted this picture of like fat incels, neckbeards
getting assigned
right.
women.
He meant socially it should be like a cultural pressure that there is monogamy, that society doesn't look fondly on people who are promiscuous or polyamorous and things like that. So basically if people feared cancel, like imagine cancel culture. You got emails being like, you're a degenerate. How could you cheat on your wife or your husband? And people were like, no, I could not get a divorce. I'll lose my job, that kind of thing.
Well, I don't think that'll happen.
Well, I'm not saying I think it'll happen either. I'm just saying, like,
I think women.
Do you agree that society should be structured in that way?
I liked Myron had a tweet recently that said that women that cheat on their military husbands when they're deployed should face jail time. I liked that.
I don't think that's far-fetched.
No, and that's the thing. Like, military men have it so bad.
You're
they
like literally compromising the national security by doing that.
Jail time.
Yeah, jail time.
Maybe not jail
It's
time,
tough, 'cause
but
I don't know that I disagree.
Problem with
Yeah.
the jail time,
Well, because they're getting paid. When a man or woman joins the army, if they get married, you get base housing.
So what happens though is they come back from the military, and what they'll do is the women will go to court and say, I've been raising the kid for 8 months. It's in the best interest of the child to stay with me.
Yeah.
Well, he's been serving our country for 8 months. How is that fair? And a lot of times women also, they can get restraining orders. So like me and you get into a fight, I get a restraining order, right? And then I can go to court and say, he hasn't been with the kid in 3 months.
Andrew had a woman on his show last week this is her words. She said when she graduated high school and realized she was going to have to pay her own bills, she kind of freaked out and married her high school boyfriend because he was going into the military and was going to have this reliable income. But, several years down the line, he's getting deployed all the time. He's always busy, and he didn't pay enough attention to her. So she divorced him.
Yeah, well, ask. No, seriously, ask. I was just at and this is what you start to notice patterns. Ask any military guy if he knows someone that has a divorce horror story. They all do.
Yeah. Sorry, I was going to say, like, I myself, and I know a lot of other women who would flat out just not date anyone actively in the military because you have to assume they're going to get deployed. So if you're going into a relationship with someone and that, like, attention is important to you, what are you thinking? It's their job. They have to.
Sorry, adultery is illegal in the military.
Oh, good.
But I don't know if that applies for women.
The issue is there's so many workarounds with this stuff. Like, they changed the definition of abuse to include That's why I say it's feminist language, because abuse used to be a man hitting a woman, and then they expand. Like, that's what women do first, is they change the definition of words. Yeah. So it used to be abuse. Now we have emotional abuse, financial abuse, and there's just so many loopholes, and it's so confusing that women can really use the system to steal children from men. And then that causes every problem in society, homelessness, school shooters, because women are raising men. And that's just not good for society.
Well, in Quebec, which is, probably the most socially liberal part of Canada, which is already socially liberal, they have done a lot of, it's one of those places where no one gets married, people cohabitate. It's so feminist in Quebec that you actually legally cannot take your husband's last name if you are in Quebec.
Wow.
You can change your name to whatever you want it, but if you're married and a wife, you cannot take your husband's last name. They won't let you.
Super bizarre.
There were too many divorces, and it kind of caused like a paperwork nightmare for the bureaucracy. So eventually they just said no one's changing their name anymore. There's a lot of divorces as well. And it's interesting because in Quebec, there's also common law marriage, which is something I don't think is very common in the state. But if you live together, are conjugally together, we are going to determine your spouses. They also have...
Or if you have a ceremony, it's like, the men say, we don't want to sign up. And they're like, we're going to make you sign up.
Exactly. Right. They'll actually, in some cases, they will determine couples are married, even if they say that they're not, because they want to tax them at a higher bracket. It's like, no, you guys are living together. We're going to say you're married. But as a result, so it's kind of like a microcosm of like, how far can we go, like getting rid of the institution of marriage. But one thing I think they do well is when it comes to child custody, both parents are assumed to have equal possession, equal rights to their children. And growing up in Asia, I had never met a divorced family until I went to school in Canada. It just never happened. The idea of like double-barreled last names, new concept to me. But you would usually see kids would do 1 week with mom, 1 week with dad.
Yeah.
And what's interesting with child custody is it why women became default parents was because of the tender years doctrine.
Yeah.
And women actually argued that we should have default parenthood because we're the ones that are better at taking care of the home and children. And now the courts have ruled that women get default child custody. And what's funny is now we have feminism where women say, no, we're equal to men. We are just like men. We can go into the workplace. We don't need being home and taking care of the kids. That's not for women anymore. So why isn't that reversed? And it's because
Right.
women just have all the emotional
Schrodinger's
power.
feminist strikes again.
Yeah.
And it's not even true. Like women are more violent with children than men.
Well, I was
And
going to say,
we're going to talk
they're
about
more
this.
prone
going
to
to say
mental
there's a
illness.
piece on my Substack about this,
Yeah.
going over the last 45 years of data from the National Incidence Study, which is far more comprehensive than the data that Michael Knowles referenced.
They always lie with it.
He
It's like,
picked one
frickin-
year
I
from
know,
one
I know.
CPS study, and he actually didn't even get the data right there because I went back and checked.
Yeah.
But if you
Fact checked. You were wrong.
we have
We've been trying
45,
to- yeah, go
45
ahead.
years now of major propaganda that has convinced the public that the main threat to women is their husbands. That if you're going to be abused or mistreated, maltreated in any way, that your husband's going to be the guy, and that's what you have to guard against. That's what you have to be careful of. But if you look at the National Incidence Studies, which takes data from not just CPS, but all reporting agencies, including like women's shelters, emergency rooms, school counselors, all that sort of thing.
It's actually the migrants.
No, it's actually boyfriend, girlfriends living together. Or mom gets a divorce and stepdad moves in, mom's boyfriend
Yeah, if
moves
you take
in.
out stepdads,
the lowest
yeah.
incidence of abuse for women and children is with the children's married biological father living
Right.
in the home. When you remove the married biological father, it puts both women and children at the highest risk for every type of maltreatment that there is.
Wow.
Like not
Yeah.
even close. So,
So-
a factor of like 12 times depending on the living situation.
Yeah, and
but-
so that's why even like women are more nurturing. I don't think that's true.